Hi, everyone. Welcome to Tech Talk, a podcast where me, Rinat, and Amit, we talk about various tech topics. We've talked about a number of upcoming and popular topics in the past, like cryptocurrency, like software automation, etc. Today, what we decided is today we're going to talk about electric vehicles. This is, although this seems like an automotive subject, but this a lot of IT relate, a sort of tech goes into it, into making it, and it is a fascinating subject. There is a lot of interesting technology that is being used to make an electric vehicle work. So we thought it would be a really good topic to cover for our audience. And yeah, let's talk about electric vehicles. What do you think about it, Amit?
Thank you so much again for the good introduction, Rinat. So yeah, first of all, thanks for suggesting this topic. It's a good topic, very relevant, especially with the advancements that we are making with battery technology. I think electric vehicles are becoming more and more popular. But I think with global warming now threatening life on our planet, I think it's an inevitable. It's inevitable that people will actually eventually end up adopting electric vehicles. So it's quite important, good for the environment, good for us, and good for everyone. And electric vehicles, I mean, it says electric vehicles, but it's not limited to just cars. It's any vehicle that can be powered by electric motor. Now, the motor itself can be powered by a battery, a solar cell, say petrol or diesel fuel, it doesn't matter, but at the end it's being powered by an electric motor. So that's why it's called electric vehicle. But yeah, I mean, it's a good topic and I think quite relevant.
Yes, absolutely. Electric vehicles, or I think in short, a lot of people call it EV. And yeah, that's a very good perspective to look at it, because yeah, it's not just cars. I mean, I personally, whenever I talk about electric vehicles, I know the first thing that comes into mind is Tesla. A car being driven by electricity. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the horizon is so much bigger, because um, it's any vehicle that is run by electricity. So, that would include, from submarine to even, like a like a electric scooter as well. And yeah, I mean, and electricity could be generated in many ways, in many forms. It could be battery technology, which is one of the main ones that are, currently being popularized. Apart from that, there are other technology where you sort of generate, battery is where you store the electricity that is already been generated. But you could also have technology where you actually generate the electricity on the vehicle. So yeah, there are many ways to sort of overcome this problem of problem of transport, problem of getting electricity to transport anything. And these are all innovative solutions, and some work in some different scenarios, etc. And yeah, it's very exciting to talk about all of this.
Yes, so I mean, let's just start. I mean, electric. We know that okay, it's run on electric motor, powered by electric motor. So it's not powered by a gas engine. Sorry, a gasoline engine, say a petrol engine or a diesel engine. The engine itself drives the wheels, but in this case, it's an electric motor that drives the wheels. But when we talk about vehicle, a vehicle could be anything. It moves people from one place to another, place A to place B. So that vehicle normally, when people talk about electric vehicles, they normally talk about Teslas or four-wheeled automobiles. But an electric vehicle, as you rightly said, it could be a submarine because it's powered by nuclear energy, but in the end, that nuclear energy must be driving a steam engine that generates electricity that powers the whole submarine. Similarly, you have railway tracks, sorry, railway um, trains that are run on electricity. So, with overhead cables or tracks that have the electricity passing through them. and then you have the trams. Trams in most of the cities are run on electricity. Then you have two-wheelers, so cycles, motorcycles, or scooters. So they can run on electricity. And then you have other forms of vehicles that can also run on electricity. So yes, so and even say aircrafts, ships, etc. So there is a huge array of vehicles inside EVs that can be classified as EVs, and the whole world is now moving towards a direction where they want to electrify all the existing vehicles because it makes sense. The cost of a battery or running an electric vehicle is more economical and beneficial to the environment as well as to the company because of all the subsidies given by the government. So it makes more sense for companies to adopt that. So yeah, that's EV in short, and we have categorized it across different areas.
Yes, yeah. I mean, yeah. You rightly said there's so many, different ways electricity is supplied to the motor, and that is a good way to categorize it. But also, one of the things also probably worth mentioning is that EV is obviously it's electric vehicles, but it's not necessarily self-driving cars. Um,
Yes,
yeah, so yeah, as soon as we talk about EV, we think about cars like Tesla, and that also there is another piece of technology that is also evolving, side by side simultaneously, and becoming very popular nowadays. To be able to track where it is in the world, and and to be able to drive automatically without the need for a driver. But that is also an amazing piece of technology, and I'm really glad how quickly it's developing. But that's not necessarily just electric vehicle. Electric vehicle is the more of the technology of you know getting the electricity, and you know using the electricity to run the vehicle itself. But yeah, that obviously opens up the door to use that electricity to do a bunch of other stuff, like automated driving, and use a number of cameras to understand where everything else is. So we could potentially do another talk on automated or self-driving cars
yes,
in future. Absolutely. But yeah, EV is not necessarily, I mean, usually automated, sorry, self-driving cars are a subset of EV, but it could be in a petrol car as well. A petrol car could also be a self-driving car,
yes,
but
absolutely.
usually what it is, you see these technologies go hand to hand together. But yeah, EV is just electricity driving the vehicle.
Yes, and the electricity is normally coming from either a battery or an inverter. So when you have a laptop, you have a adapter, and that adapter actually takes you connect it to a socket, the socket switch in your house. So when you connect that, it converts the alternating current that's coming from the main supply into direct current that your laptop can use. And that's why you have an adapter, a special type of adapter, and all laptops have that adapter. So it's basically inverts AC to DC. Now, batteries normally give energy in the form of direct current, and electric motors actually run on alternating current, and that is something very important to understand. So whenever we use batteries to store energy, and it's important to store energy because then it's more portable, so you can take the batteries anywhere, fit it inside anything, and then move and go someplace else, recharge it, and use it again. If you have a motor, sorry, if you have a generator, say a diesel generator, then you have to fill it with diesel. It's heavy. It's not as lightweight as a battery. It's heavy, and then it generates electricity through the diesel fuel, and then powers the electric motor. So direct current is something that doesn't have any sine wave curve. So when you look at the current profile, it's a flat line. But with alternating current, it's a sinusoidal wave. So it's like a sine curve, up and down, up and down. So you
Yeah.
have zeros and ones. Not exactly zeros and ones, but in that form. It has a high, it has a low, and that wave propagates. And that's what a alternating current is. So if you touch a mains wire that has a direct current, you will not be able to pull your arm away. You'll just get stuck because there is no, it's not turning on and off, on and off, on and off. But with the alternating current, if you touch a hold cable, there are possibilities that you at a given instant you can actually pull your hand away. DC current is more efficient and is used where in places where you need continuous supply of current, and AC is used uh, in the other areas. So DC current is characterized by a flat curve, and a AC current is characterized by a sinusoidal curve or a sine curve with highs and lows. And DC current and AC current can both power an electric motor. So depending upon the need, you supply either AC current or DC current, and that's essentially it. So you have a motor powered by electricity. It could be powered by AC or DC, and yeah, that's how essentially everything works. Now, when we talk about electric vehicles, uh, the main thing is that most of them are generating their electricity using batteries. Majority. Some of them, like trains and trams, they get the electricity direct from the grid through the overhead cables or an extra track laid down on the railway tracks. So that's where most of the energy comes.
Yeah, actually, this reminds me of something, from my work experience. I used to, when I was working as a mechanical engineer, I worked for London Underground, and that was an amazing experience because I actually got to walk on the underground tracks inside the tunnels and everything. So it was really really exciting to do that. But because of that, I also know that in London Underground, if in one of our audience, any of our audiences goes and notices, there are actually four tracks. So two of those tracks the underground train
Yes.
actually uses to travel to transport, and then the track, there is another sort of electric line, or it looks like a track, is in the middle of those two tracks, and that's actually the neutral line. And then there is a fourth track which is the farthest away. The fourth sort of metal track that is there, that is the farthest away, and that's the negative current line, and that's the main powerful electricity. And they design it this way: they keep the powerful current electricity the furthest away. So even if accidentally someone falls into the tracks, they're less likely to get electrocuted by that track. But again, in overground, that might not be the case. So I think I would suggest my audience to just best to not fall into the tracks at all, rather than trying to remember what's what. But yeah, I know this piece of information from when I was working for London Underground, and yeah, it is interesting how electricity is supplied to big vehicles like trains. And you would think that it's very costly to run another track just to supply electricity, but once you set it up, it is there for a long time, and it certainly does recover the cost.
It does, and it's quite efficient. The acceleration is quite good as well. You can accelerate very quickly using uh, electricity to power trains. And it's not just underground. I mean, people might have heard about magnetic leviation trains or the maglev train in Japan, which floats over the trains. That's powered by magnets, and those magnets are electromagnets, so they are actually powered by electricity, and they change the polarity um, very rapidly, and that's how the train moves forward. Um,
Yeah, that is also a very interesting piece of technology. And because there is no friction, I mean, friction is one of the, I mean, is very important. We are alive because of it, but also it's very troublesome when you're trying to do any kind of movement. It's just always there, always. reducing the efficiency of the energy we're creating. But yeah, you can avoid that by levitating, and that is such a cool technology. And yeah, yeah,
It is, and so yes, essentially there are different ways in which you can power a vehicle, but the majority of the people will be familiar with batteries. So you have battery operated toys, you have battery operated cars. And these
yeah,
batteries are the biggest game changer now because the way we pack energy, store energy, and transport it in a vehicle is becoming more and more crucial. And whoever cracks this storage and density and recharging and discharging problem, then they will be the next billionaires or trillionaires. And that's what actually Elon Musk, with Tesla and few other companies like Lucid Motors and some Chinese companies, they are, and even battery manufacturers like Panasonic, they are trying to crack. So what is the next big piece of battery tech? And this is basically to have lot of storage in terms of power in a very small space, so you can actually pack more batteries and then you can increase the range of an electric vehicle. Because currently what's happening is that I mean, people are buying electric vehicles, but the majority of them are still very concerned about the range, and they are also concerned about the ability of an electric vehicle to be driven in a very cold or a very hot climate. Because if suppose you live in, say, close to the poles, then you have a very extreme winter, and you don't want to have an electric vehicle that's not able to start, especially in those extreme cold
yeah,
environment. And also, if you are living very close to the equator, you will constantly have very high temperature, and high temperature actually impacts the health of the battery. So you need to have an optimum temperature maintained for the battery, and then operate that battery. So yeah, I mean
yeah.
that's a big game changer.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you rightly said so that yeah, the battery technology, whenever we get to that next stage of improvement in battery technology, our lives will be changed, very quickly, because so many things around us run on electricity, and powering all of these appliances, all of these gadgets that we use, that is a big part of it. I mean, imagine if right now it's like it's like a habit that you charge your phone every day. But imagine if you only had to do it once a month, or
Yes.
imagine if you, instead of charging once a month, imagine you never had to charge it ever again if it was being charged wirelessly. So and if you take expand it from your mobile phone to all electric gadgets, that's just then you realize how much of a game changer it can be. So yeah, absolutely. The energy holding and supplying and converting of the energy into electricity, that is one of the big areas where you can innovate and change the world completely.
So with batteries, the challenge is to charge them very quickly. So that's one. Then the other is to discharge them quickly. So when you press your accelerator, you want the battery to give you enough energy so you can accelerate quickly, or the torque, as they say. So you want the battery to get charged quickly and discharge quickly. Also, you want an optimum temperature in which the battery operates. Plus, you want a battery that can store more energy. So these are a couple of challenges. And when you look at the physical challenges, it you can then extrapolate to the thought that maybe we cannot um, run a full-fledged aeroplane using batteries, because the amount of battery that you would need might actually increase the weight, and it may not be enough for the aircraft to take off because the weight is so huge. So it may not offset. And the same applies for ships, the big container ships that carry thousands and thousands of tons of cargo. And if you have to then add thousands of tons of battery just to power them over, say, million kilometers across the ocean, not million, thousands of kilometers across the ocean, then it becomes a huge challenge. So that's why in a if you reduce the scale, then the electric vehicles or the cars that we know, Tesla especially, then that becomes very lucrative, because they don't have to travel too far. They just have to compete with the existing petrol and diesel cars, or the gasoline cars, which are very popular in US. So they just have to compete with that, and they just have to compete in terms of range and also in terms of refueling. So if I'm able to recharge my car quickly, and if I'm able to get the same range of a petrol car, maybe even better, then I would go for an electric vehicle anytime, because I can recharge it sitting in my house, just connecting it to the power socket which is there, using the main supply, costing me very, very um, uh, less money in terms of recharging and running the vehicle. And because there are less moving parts, because there is no petrol engine, there are less moving parts, it means maintenance cost also goes down. Plus it's cleaner, it's greener for the environment, so you have the environment factor as well. So with all those things considered, it makes less noise, so you don't have to worry about noise. It doesn't produce any emissions. So if you have children and you're worried that having a car that produces emissions is not good for the environment, so yeah, these are some of the various benefits of using an electric vehicle that's run on electric motor powered by batteries.
Absolutely. I mean, the benefits, there's so many benefits, it's just endless. But yeah, I mean, going back to what you were saying, the energy, energy density, that is actually very important. And yeah, it's very interesting to think that you might end up with, to have an electric aircraft, you might end up with so many batteries that you can't, it basically supersedes the ability to fly. I mean, so the energy it's creating is not enough to support itself. That's why you can't scale it up. And yeah, I mean, solving this problem of what I was saying, I think one of the things I was thinking is energy density is so important, and people might say that, oh no, that we are at our latest technology already. I mean, there is no way of improving it. But no, that's not the case, and the proof is right in front of us. I mean, the energy density or the energy our body generates from a ham sandwich or any kind of food is a lot more. It's like I think 8 to 10 times more than what a battery's energy density is. So from a ham sandwich, the energy using chemical processes in our body generates enough energy that if you could create a battery that would do that, that would solve all the problem of even even creating spaceship, etc. So the solution is that it is possible. It is technically possible, and we are doing it every day. Our bodies are more energy efficient and able to generate more energy from a ham sandwich than our batteries does, or currently our other electricity generating systems does. So absolutely the solution is there. We just have to think of more innovative ways of generating this electricity from whatever is the fuel source. It could be a ham sandwich, which is in our case, in our body, is doing that as the fuel source. But there could be so many different fuel that you can consider, but the solution is there. We just have to find it.
Absolutely. I think you rightly mentioned, I mean, in nature, in life, in reality, you have solutions, and scientists are actually looking at different materials. And it's not just batteries, people are looking at even capacitors. Capacitors are very high dense energy storage um, devices, and they carry a lot of huge current. Again, the problem comes of charging and discharging. So normally you would see capacitors in, say, your laptop adapters or things like that, because at the moment you turn off the electric switch, the light on the adapter doesn't go off immediately. It takes a while to discharge. So that's where the capacitor is, and the capacitor is basically to make sure that you always get a constant voltage to your device. It balances it. So it could be a battery, it could be a capacitor. We don't know, but yes, density is a huge problem. And Bill Gates also mentioned this in one of his talks, that that's actually where I got the idea from that. Okay, it's physically actually maybe impossible for aircrafts and ships and even rockets to be powered by batteries. We might someday end up with a technology which is very superior, but it's not in the near future with the current level of understanding that we have. And most of the batteries are now lithium ion batteries. They're just making different form factors, but mostly they are lithium ion batteries. So till we find some other materials that we can use to, and lithium ion is again liquid. So there are batteries now that people are thinking about solid batteries. So solid cathode and anode and electrolyte. So that could be the future, but people are experimenting with it. But anyway, coming back to electric vehicles, so you have the batteries and you have an electric motor, and that's it. You don't have a clutch. Yeah, you may have a brake. Some vehicles use the accelerator as a brake itself. So when you press, it accelerates, and when you remove your leg from the pedal, it decelerates or it brakes. So yeah, it's very interesting that the kind of technology. And you mentioned about self-driving cars. Now they are very popular with electric cars, especially Tesla made it very popular. But before Tesla, there was the Google Street View. So I'm not sure if you remember that the car that Google used to capture all the street view across the world was actually autonomous. So there was no person driving that car, and it was fully self-driven. But of course, it was not with a passenger in it. And self-driving car, when we talk about it, it's a car that can carry passenger, it can carry some load, some cargo by itself and navigate through different forms of traffic conditions. So it's a very interesting
Oh yes, yes.
area.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. And that's actually a good thing that you reminded me. Yes, Google self-driving cars. I mean, we are thinking that right now this is quite, the advanced technology, but this actually makes me think there are a lot of tech companies which have, advanced a lot more, but because of, bringing a technology into public it requires a lot of like sort of permissions and a lot of testing, etc. But there were self-driving cars 10, 15 years ago, and Google used it to create the Google Street View. So this is very interesting and quite amazing how much time has passed since self-driving cars were first seen. And self-driving technology is has been there for some time, and I know people are usually still a little bit reluctant to have a car which will drive itself, but the technology has been evolving for some time. And in current days, with the number of cameras, of not just the visual cameras, but infrared cameras and various other kinds of systems for robots or cars to see. With that, it's becoming more and more bulletproof. Or when I say, proof of any kind of accidents to happen. And I'm not saying that there's zero chance of accidents, but it's significantly lower than when a human drives it. And until automated cars were in our streets, the 100% of all car accidents where there was, well, no, 100%, because so I think I read a statistics before self-driving cars were there, and the biggest reason for all kinds of accidents is the driver itself. There was very little
Yes,
mechanical fault or any other kind of fault, or there was a signal problem or anything. No, the main reason there were accidents was because of the person who was driving made a mistake or made an error in judgment. So self-driving cars basically takes away, removes that weak point, which is we have to, shamefully admit that the humans were the biggest weak point. And yeah, we're just trying to find a way to sort of eliminate that part of the driving.
it is. It is. I mean, self-driving cars will rapidly change the future, and not just in terms of accidents, but in terms of accessibility. A lot of disabled people, old people who can't drive, they can use a self-driving car and go to shopping malls, hospitals, and other places, and on their own. So they don't need actually someone to drive them. They can actually just sit inside the car, say maybe take a wheelchair, just push your wheelchair inside the electric vehicle and ask the electric vehicle to navigate to a certain location using a voice assisted technology like a Google Assistant or Alexa or Siri. So,
Yes.
so I mean, so far we have over the last couple of weeks, we have discussed about so many different technologies like cloud computing, big data, virtual reality, and they are all actually interconnected. I mean, even if you look at electric vehicles, they are interconnected because um, so let's go back a bit actually. Electric vehicles. Why electric vehicles? Why is it so important? Um, we know the benefits, but then why make an electric vehicle? What are the limitations of a gas engine? And Rinat, we both are mechanical engineers, so can you actually tell me? Um, I mean, let's talk a bit about gas engines, or sorry, not gas engines, but fossil fuel-based engines, a petrol engine or a diesel engine. Why is it that it's getting now out of vogue? People don't want a diesel engine or a petrol engine, and why do they want suddenly a electric vehicle?
Well, I mean, I suppose, if I twist the question a little bit, I mean, why did we leave as a, why did the humankind, altogether decide to come away from fossil fuel? I think the first thing is that it's limited because, yeah, there might be heaps and heaps of it, tons and tons of fuel still left,
Yes.
but we know for sure they will eventually run out. We can't just wait for it to run out and then start doing the research. That would be like, oh, coronavirus has taken over the world. Now do research for vaccine. No, we can't do that for all technologies. We have to be proactive because transport is such a big part of the world, for the humankind to survive really. That we can't have that, oh, we nearly ran out of fossil fuel and then now find ways to find alternative. No, we that's why this was a must. But from even in an individual level, you might think that, oh, fossil fuel is gives you an extra level of comfort if you're doing a long drive. You know that you will be able to go to petrol station to top up your fuel or whatever. But all of these things can be eliminated and gotten better with electric vehicles. Yeah, I mean, there might be less of a range with a battery, but you will have more charging stations. There's charging stations nowadays everywhere, even in parking spots. So you don't even have to go to an actual, you know, for petrol or diesel, you have to go to a gas station and fill it up. But you don't even need to do that with electric vehicles, and it's so much cheaper. So on a micro level, there are many benefits for the individual, and in a macro level, not only that fossil fuel will run out, it's also bad for the environment. There's so many. I mean, all the benefits of electric vehicles is also all the negatives of fossil fuel, using fossil fuel. So yeah, I mean, that's what I would say. I mean, what do you have anything in particular in mind, or?
I just think that it just makes everything simple. I mean, when you get rid of so many moving parts, it just makes the vehicle more simple and easy to maintain. So if you just have batteries and an electric motor, you get rid of the engine, you get rid of the gearbox, you get rid of so many things, and that makes it so easy to maintain. And because you have less maintenance costs, then it means your vehicles will last longer. And when your vehicles last longer, then all you need to do is maybe replace your batteries, nothing else. So yeah, it just makes things simple, and we have gone from very complicated things to very simple things. I mean, we used to have so many devices. We used to have a radio, we used to have a camera, we used to have a voice recorder, we used to have a music system, we used to have various other things. All that became one device, our smartphone. So so we are so I'm thinking that why electric vehicle is becoming popular is of course benefits, or I mean they outweigh when you compare it with a fossil fuel based vehicle, but then it also makes everything just simpler, cleaner, and more efficient. I mean, the amount of energy that you waste as heat when you're running a fossil fuel based engine is extreme. I mean, the efficiency is not that great, but with an electric vehicle, the efficiency is at least much better. I mean, you still reduce, I mean, you still waste some of the energy as heat, but it's far less compared to a fossil fuel based vehicle. And as you mentioned, we will eventually run out of it. So
Yes, yes.
if you have to go into space, if you have to go into extreme environments, we should get rid of that. And fossil fuel also burn. Um, so it causes explosions. Now even batteries cause explosions, and that's why people are moving. They want to move towards solid batteries, not liquid batteries, where the chances of explosions are very less. So that's what I mean. But with the fossil fuel, they always say be careful with a matchstick, don't
Oh, yes.
so I mean there are so many things. It produces fumes that are very harmful. With an electric vehicle, as long as you can charge your battery in the most environmentally efficient way, then you are having a very clean environment, and the only waste that you would produce is the battery itself.
Yes, yes, you're absolutely right. And yeah, simplicity is important. And you also, you're thinking, oh, it's nice to be simple, but there are so many other benefits to it as well. Now, with a simple internal infrastructure, in a car, you have so much more space to
Yes,
have, to create, to make the journey more pleasant for the passenger. And even if without that, just because it's simple, the crash ratings can be improved. I mean, there isn't a massive, a really heavy engine in front of your car, so the weight can be distributed more evenly in the event of a crash. How the car absorbs the impact can be, improved a lot more, because they're not having to take into account all of these other, things in that are in the car. And then again, another thing to think about, that when there are toy cars, there have been toy cars, that runs on electricity 30 years ago. Why was it running on electricity even in 30 years ago? Why, if fossil fuel was the best way to go, then even the toy cars would have been made by fossil fuel, because that's the easiest thing to do. But no, even toy cars, which I grew up playing in like late 80s or early 90s, that's like 30 years ago. Even those were actually running on electricity. Yeah, I put batteries on, etc. But that's how simple this technology is, the electric vehicle technology, because it just literally, I mean, it was running 30 years ago. So you could say how simple it is. And this will have a lot of intangible side effects, benefits, which will, make the car, or make any vehicle, better and better over time.
absolutely, absolutely, and I think that's why it's very relevant. We are talking about it, and initially the cost of a battery or the cost of a kilowatt hour, how much energy can the battery provide per hour? So that cost was very high, but slowly that cost is coming down, and thanks to people investing a lot of money, and they have realized, even countries that have a lot of fossil fuel reserves are have now realized that it's just not worth their time and effort to pursue that path. So they have now invested in huge amounts in electric vehicles. And electric vehicles is, as a explorer species, we always love exploring. We have traveled in ships, we have traveled in horses, we have traveled in spacecrafts. So wherever humanity's mind can go, we have tried to go there. And if you think about the future, we might be in planets where they may not be fossil fuels. So if you go to Moon or if you go to Mars, there may not be fossil fuels. So you might have to actually run everything on batteries, and you might have to power those batteries or charge those batteries using some alternative fuels. So that's why it's actually important to have an infrastructure or have the research capabilities to identify those things early enough, so you can when you are capable enough, you can go there and you can utilize the benefits. A lot of people ask me these questions: why invest so much in space tech, and why not invest or help the poor? Of course, help the poor, but when you invest in space tech, you are actually trying to solve problems that you have not even imagined by going to an unknown place. So when people imagined that they want to go to explore the Americas, they didn't know where America was. They just wanted to build a ship, and when they had to build a ship, they had to understand about navigation, etc. The concept of longitude came because of ship navigation. It was necessary for ships to track time, where they are, how far they are from their home location. So just by um, keeping our destination beyond our reach, beyond the usual, we actually come up with big problems. And when we come up with big problems, we come up with better solutions. And I think aiming for the moon, aiming for the Mars is actually good for our species, because then we have bigger problems to solve, and when we have those problems to solve, then we think of better solutions. Okay, how can we build a better battery? How can we build a battery that can power a rocket? How can we build a battery that can work in sub-zero temperature? How can I build a battery that can work in zero gravity? How do I build all those things, and how do I power? I mean, think of International Space Station. That's complete. It's an electric vehicle. In essence, it's an EV. It's just
Yes,
powered
yeah.
by. It's powered by solar energy, but that solar energy is used to generate electricity to power the whole station.
Yes, that is amazing. That is very amazing and interesting to think about. Another thing I think I was talking to someone and they were saying something very interesting, that Elon Musk, who is working on the SpaceX and looking at going to Mars, and also advancing Tesla. And they were saying that all of his different ventures, he does have a number of projects that he's working on. Now, all of these are actually to supplement the objective was of going and living in Mars. Tesla is not being innovated to run in on Earth, but in Mars, there is no source of fossil fuel or any known source. And electricity is one of the only things that can be easily generated and also harvested from sunlight, all of that. So yeah, I mean, what Elon Musk is doing with Tesla is not building a car for the Earth, but for building a technology which will be used to transport in Mars. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, for humanity to survive and expand, that's one that's as a species, any species objective is one of these two. Survive and continue surviving, and then explore and expand further. Um, for that, definitely, electric vehicles does have an actual point, actual contribution there. So yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to think about all the ways it impacts our current lives and our future lives.
Yes, and I think the one last thing I would mention about electric vehicles is we'll have less wastage of material. So the
Hmm.
amount of material that's needed to build an electric car will be far less than the amount of material needed to build a diesel or any fossil fuel based car. You'll have less engines or less material needed when you don't have an engine, when you don't have a gearbox, when you don't have a clutch system, etc. You might still have some other systems, but those are already there in any fossil fuel based cars. So you're just getting rid of those things. And as you mentioned, um, better um center of gravity, better, stronger materials, etc. So people can then, whatever money that they were spending on building a very good engine, they can spend that money in building better vehicle, stronger vehicle, invest in battery technology, etc. So it's just good. And my next target, I currently own a hybrid vehicle, so it's a Toyota Yaris. It's powered partly by electricity, and I can see the difference because it's not noisy at all when it's run on the battery. It just doesn't make a noise. And you sometimes, my wife, when she first started the engine, she's like, "Is the car actually running?" You don't feel it. And because there is no gearbox, what happens is, and I've test driven a Tesla Model S, and you feel the torque immediately. There is no lag. So with any fossil fuel based vehicle, there will be a slight delay from the moment you switch the gear to the moment you press the accelerator. There will be some lag. Electric vehicle, no lag. You press the accelerator, you get the torque, and it's instant. It's instant feedback. So it's fun. It's fun to ride as well.
Yes, yes, absolutely. mean, to be honest, I still drive a petrol car. I do very much enjoy it, and I intentionally bought a manual car because I grew up driving like that. But definitely, automatic cars are nowadays the way to go, and yeah, without a gearbox is even better. I mean, at the end of the day, the less small parts there is, less carbon footprints are there to to manufacture it, and so many benefits. It's just endless benefits. And yeah, I've been on Tesla as well, and yeah, it's just so quiet from outside and from inside, and there's not even a vibe in there's no vibration either, because with a petrol or with a fuel engine, the engine is always running, the RPM is always there, it's always doing that cycle of exploding a little bit of petrol or diesel, and then that making the car, the engine turn or go around a little bit, and then when you're using it, you're connecting that engine to the wheels, so it goes forward, but it's always running and it's always vibrating as a result, which is actually which has a long-term health effect on humans as well. So the noise and vibration both has long-term negative health effect on humans. These also will be eliminated with an electric car. It's just yeah. I mean, and also when you're talking about macro things like this, I mean, yeah, when we're talking about health things, health related topics, you just think about yourself or your loved ones, or as humans you think about another human being. But when you talk about macro level health benefits, that means that billions of people are being affected by this, and you're thinking noise and vibration, yeah, it has some, it don't feel good or whatever, but out of maybe out of each million people, this causes a serious health issue. And then if you're the policymaker of a country, then a country with 65 million people, then 65 people every year could be needing serious health, at medical attention every year. That's a cost, that the NHS has to calculate all of these costs. That's 65 different doctors, a week probably gone. And how, so there are so many things that, and so once these things are eliminated, then there are a lot of cost saving. There is a lot of other people with cancer or heart attack, or some serious other medical illness that needs attention, can now be given attention. There is a huge backlog of all, like, sort of elective operations and procedures that people are waiting on, that can be helped. So yeah, there's so many benefits and so many side effects, like benefits, like the benefits that are like as part of a domino effect that we didn't even think about, but will happen from adopting to electric cars.
Exactly. So aim bigger, aim higher, and
Hmm.
solve problems. I mean, the more problems we have, the better solutions will come. Google has this term called the moonshot problems. So aim for the moon, you will still end up being in the orbit of planet Earth. So that's a good enough place to be.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, yeah, going back to the example you gave earlier, like, if you're trying to solve battery or the energy density problem for a rocket, then you might end up finding a very best alternative for an electric car. So yeah, definitely, yeah, if you're aiming really high, then no matter what we will end up with, it's probably better than some of the existing, you
Exactly.
know
Exactly.
yeah.
And it's very difficult for people to understand that because people are always thinking in terms of money. But you mentioned, right, when we had COVID, we didn't have the vaccine. So once we had the pandemic, then we started rushing towards getting a vaccine out. So all this tech that we are talking about, it takes a lot of time to develop, research, refine, etc. And a lot of money has to be pumped in. So tomorrow suddenly we can't wake up and say, okay, fossil fuel has run out, so now let's find an alternative. Or
Yeah.
tomorrow we run out of all food on planet Earth because we have eaten all the animals, we've eaten all the plants, so we don't have any food left. Now we think of, okay, now we want to go to space, but oh, we can't go to space because we haven't invested so much time and effort in actually researching. Cars are safe now, but they are safe now because centuries of effort have been put in to refine the engine, the mechanics, the safety, etc. So cars are now very refined and very stable and very safe, but they took a lot of time to be where they are. And similarly with space tech or any other tech, battery tech or any other tech, you need to spend a lot of time in order to refine that tech and then use it. So maybe we'll not see all the benefits in our generation, but maybe our future generations will see. But it's up to us to actually push that tech a bit forward.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. Every generation has pushed it forward, and there are benefits of pushing it. It's not just that, oh, I don't get to enjoy it, so I'm not going to do it. No, I mean, even going from, small progression will have benefit in your life as well. So yeah, definitely. I'd urge the audience. Obviously, we talked about electric vehicles today on many aspects of it, but I'd urge the audience to definitely, with the innovative ones amongst you, I would say definitely look into ways to improve the energy density problem, not just a battery problem. You don't you remain out of the remain a more widespread thinking mindset. Don't just be bogged down in battery technology. The problem is not battery. The problem is having a energy source, or having or getting more energy out of a smaller amount of physical stuff. Or
Yes,
the problem, or maybe put it in a better way, the problem is to have what how can we define the problem? I mean,
the
it's a
problem is
density
simple.
problem.
Move from place A to place B in as efficient way as possible, using as less fuel as possible for as long as possible, with the longest range, with the longest with the safest means. So that's what our end goal is, right? So suppose humans have to travel all the way to say Pluto. So what kind of fuel source do we need? I mean, we can't use fossil fuels. So of course, NASA doesn't use fossil fuels. They use fossil fuels plus electricity plus gravity. So they use a lot of different
Yes.
means to send spacecrafts from our planet to Pluto. So similarly, we have to think about better solutions, simpler solutions, and scalable solutions in order to move humans quickly from one place to another without much impact to the environment. So that's the problem, I would say. But I think I would urge people that if you have been listening to our podcast, I mean, what we have been trying to do is introduce you to those topics. I mean, these topics are not new. These topics are not something that you may not have heard of. But what we are trying to do is inspire you, bring awareness about that technology and what it is, and what can you do with it, and is it worth your time and effort if you don't know anything about it. So, and we are trying to keep things relevant. We might cover some things which are a technology that is created centuries ago, but we still try to keep things relevant. And I would urge everyone to look into EVs and maybe come up with instead of electric vehicle, come up with AV, alt fuel vehicle or something like that. Like we have in Bitcoin, so we have altcoins.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, there could be so many fuels. Then hydrogen is apparently
Fuel
one
cell,
of the ones,
yes.
yeah, that is
So
getting a lot of
use
traction
hydrogen
nowadays.
and emit water.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you could use, I mean, better than hydrogen, if you can use nitrogen, that's 80% of air. So if nitrogen can be used in any way to generate anything, that's just yeah, that would be a
But
game changer because of the abundance of it. It's
abundance
air.
on our planet. But if you look at hydrogen, hydrogen is abundant on the entire universe. So hydrogen would be
Ah,
a better source of fuel
of course.
than nitrogen, because nitrogen is restricted to our planet. But if you're talking about I mean, if you're talking about the whole universe, then hydrogen would be an ideal source of energy, hydrogen or helium. We know hydrogen, we can use it to power, but it's highly explosive. So scientists are still tackling that problem. But if that problem is again solved, then we have abundant source of energy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I would still ask the audience to, go for nitrogen or hydrogen because yeah, I mean, whether we go in 100 years, migrate to Mars or not. But even if you can find something with nitrogen, that would still be good. But yeah, as you said, Amit, yeah, we what we're trying to do is we're trying to inspire you guys. I mean, obviously these informations are also available in Google very easily, and these are not like difficult to find information, but it's to inspire you guys in a way that, okay, maybe you like the sound of this topic, so you do a bit more research, and maybe you would come up with something with your fresh eyes that all the scholars and engineers in Tesla or in Google haven't thought about, because they are just too focused in one problem. But coming from a fresh perspective, might actually come up with something amazing. And you know it's never a bad idea to even just think about it. Think about maybe on a lazy afternoon or in bed if you couldn't fall asleep. These are interesting topics to think about, and you might find some really good ideas. You might come up with something really amazing. And if you just note it down and then carry on a little bit of diligence every day. If you just spend 5 minutes on whichever topic you liked from our talk, very quickly you will become an expert and be able to implement any idea you have. So yeah, definitely, please keep listening, and keep generating ideas, and not just don't just stop at generating ideas. Do something about this. Either patent it or try to implement it, build a prototype. So many things you can do. If you're stuck with just an idea and think of what to do with it, give us a call. And yeah, definitely keep being interactive, keep telling us, giving us your feedback, and telling us about which topics you'd like to listen to more. And yeah, definitely look at battery technology and how to get more energy out of um, anything. Smaller material, less material, more energy. So get more energy density.
Yeah, I think you have summarized it well, Renat. So thank you so much again, all our viewers and listeners, and thank you so much again. This is our 20th episode, so thank you for staying with us for the last 4 months. It's sorry, 5 months actually. 20 weeks is five months. So thank you so much for staying with us for this long. We have tried to cover some amazing topics, and we are planning to cover some more amazing topics in the near future. We are we promised you that we will have some guests, but due to some unforeseen some circumstances, we could not invite them earlier. But we have a couple of plans where we are inviting few guests. So stay tuned in, and yeah, see you next week.
See you next week, guys.